Right. 10 September 2022. And today I've got a very, very important broadcast. And this is with regards to the UN Special Rapporteur, Elena Dohan. She visited Zimbabwe last year, and that was between 18 and 28 October 2021. And she met various stakeholders in Zimbabwe regarding the sanctions on Zimbabwe. The sanctions on Zimbabwe have been in place for over 10, in fact, for over 20 years. And she came to Zimbabwe on the invitation of the Zimbabwe government. And she met a whole wide range of Zimbabweans in the government, in civil society. She also met political parties, people like Douglas Monzora. She met those. And I'm not sure if she met Chamisa, and I'm not sure if she met the American embassy in Zimbabwe. And here is the strange thing. This report has been delayed. It's out now, but it's delayed. So if you go to gambako.com, you'll be able to see this report. She has produced a report. And this report, it says the negative impact of the unilateral coercive measures on human rights in Zimbabwe. This is a hard-hitting report on sanctions in Zimbabwe. When I was reading this report, I could clearly see that the sanctions are illegal. That's what she says. They are causing untold suffering among Zimbabweans, women and children, and they must be removed. She also slammed the United States for their approach in Zimbabwe, which they say needs to change, and they need to have dialogue between Zimbabwe and the United States. I did not see the issue of internal dialogue. That was in a press statement. You remember she had a press statement there in Zimbabwe, but she did not mention the internal dialogue. I did not see it here. I could have missed it. But let's quickly run through about 20 points in this report. I'm going to do this in less than 10 minutes. Right, so Dohan visited Zimbabwe on the invitation of the Zimbabwe government. Some NGOs refused to meet her because they were afraid of losing funding from Western governments. And the the United States sanctions on Zimbabwe have been in place for over 20 years, since 2001. Other countries that have put sanctions on Zimbabwe include the European Union, Australia, Canada, Switzerland, and the UK. These countries have got various sanctions on Zimbabwe as we speak right now. And the corresponding banks have left Zimbabwe. She says the sanctions have created reputational risks for Zimbabwe. So now we go into what she found when she came to Zimbabwe. She met a lot of people. So let's quickly look at what she found. So Zimbabwe's got a problem as we speak. There is a reputational risk on the country. No one wants to do business with Zimbabwe. Then the economic crisis, unemployment, brain drain, and deindustrialization in Zimbabwe is due to the sanctions. These are the findings of Elena Dohan in her report, which has been published, the final report. Then sanctions have aggravated the humanitarian situation in Zimbabwe. Poverty has increased sharply because of the sanctions to at least half of the population in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe's 100 supply of fertilizer, the Belaruskaya, I'm sorry about that, has been placed under sanctions. So the country cannot import fertilizer from Belarus. Then sanctions have affected access to clean water, sewage, fire, waste disposal. So basically everything to do with councils in the country has collapsed. And then public revenue has reduced by over 90%. That is in places like Bulawayo. In fact, Bulawayo is 78%. The reduction there in revenue in that country, in the region. She visited Bulawayo to see what was happening there. Sanctions have resulted in the collapse of the health system, and this affects mostly women and children. So all these issues that you always hear about, no cancer machine, no medicines, she says this is to do with the sanctions. This is in the report of Elena Dohan, the UN Special Rapporteur to Zimbabwe on the negative impact of the coercive measures or sanctions on Zimbabwe. This report was delayed. And I think the delay was because, obviously, the United States was pushing back on this report. This is a very, very hard-hitting report. And to look at the key points, they say the sanctions are illegal, they must be removed, and especially the emergency measures, she says those must be removed. So those are the high-level issues. Then she says the sanction states have failed to protect and give opportunities to Zimbabwean immigrants. So if you look at the countries like the UK, Switzerland, Australia, Canada, they do not have a special program for Zimbabweans. So you cannot put Zimbabwe on sanctions. And then the citizens, you don't have anything special for them. Take, for example, South Africa. South Africa has got a special permit for Zimbabweans. The UK is nothing. The United States has got nothing. Canada is nothing. Australia is nothing. Switzerland is nothing. So the hardships that Zimbabweans feel, the ordinary Zimbabweans, they could at least have put in place a special permit for Zimbabweans to come to those countries. Sanctions have caused collapse of public transport, roads, rail, and airports. And sanctions are responsible for the retrenchment of staff. So if you look at NRZ, over 4,000 employees were retrenched. And the report says this is due to sanctions, lack of capacity, lack of business, which came as a result of the sanctions. And then let's look at the most important aspect, access to internet. You know how important access to internet is. 38% of Zimbabweans in the cities don't have access to internet. This is terrible. Like these days, in this life we're living in, without internet, you cannot progress. You cannot do business. You cannot transact. 38% of Zimbabweans don't have internet. These are the effects of the sanctions, according to Elena Dohan, the special rapporteur on sanctions, who came to Zimbabwe last year. And then sanctions have affected the ability of the Zimbabwe government to protect wildlife. So even animals in the bush are affected by sanctions. So all the game parks, they are not able to service these. Sanctions affected access to identity documents. So passport, you know the issue with the passport, the issue with the IDs, the ability to vote is affected because of the sanctions. The Zimbabwe government cannot provide documents in time. They cannot provide documents all over the country. This is because of the sanctions. And then the point on IMF, the report says the Zidera sanctions do not comply to the articles of the IMF. So they're illegal, and they also violate articles of the IMF. The agreements that are in the IMF are violated by the sanctions. And then the US Executive Order 13288 does not correspond to the article of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So specifically here, collateral damage, and also if you are a relative, let's say you're the son of a Zimbabwe government official, automatically you're on the sanction list. That is illegal. That is not right, because someone must be treated as innocent until they're proven guilty. So basically, these are the issues that she found. Sanctions devastating on Zimbabwe, devastating on the government of Zimbabwe, devastating on individuals, devastating on human rights, devastating on animals, devastating on service delivery. The sanctions have made Zimbabwe a failed state, but it's affecting ordinary people. And it says here that instead of improving the situation, it makes it worse. In terms of corruption, money laundering, the situation has become worse. It's not better. Now let's go to recommendations. I want to quickly run through the 5 or 6 recommendations, then we'll wrap this up. The UN calls upon USA, Australia, Canada, Switzerland, and the UK to lift sanctions on Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe and the USA should engage in structural dialogue to stop collateral damage. And the UN calls for the USA to stop the state of emergency on Zimbabwe, which is not in line with international law. The USA should fund the rebuilding of the Zimbabwe government capacity and infrastructure. This is new. I've never heard this anywhere, and I've never seen this anywhere. This particular report puts the responsibility for rebuilding capacity of the government of Zimbabwe on the USA government. The USA government should help with this. Look at the situation in Zambia. They've capacitated that government. I'm going to be talking more about that next week. The government is good capacity. The Zimbabwe government totally lacks capacity. They've lost staff. They've lost critical skills. And this is what this report says. The United States government should help here. I think it's part of the dialogue. Then the Zimbabwe government, they've got a responsibility here in this report. They must organize the UN special procedures visits to the country. There are certain visits that the Zimbabwe government was supposed to arrange. They have not done it for a long, long time. They were asked to then go ahead and set up these visits. And finally, the United Nations organs, other bodies in the United Nations, they must monitor and report on the situation in Zimbabwe. This situation is almost ignored. 20 years is an extremely long time, and the economy of Zimbabwe could easily recover. The countries around us, the problems that they're going through, they could easily be resolved if this issue was resolved of sanctions. This is the report here by the Special Rapporteur on the negative impact of unilateral coercive measures on the enjoyment of human rights in Zimbabwe. Elena Dohan, Zimbabweans, ordinary Zimbabweans, are being slammed by these sanctions. The United States government has been asked, the Australians, the Switzerland government, the Canadians, European Union, they've been asked in this report to remove the sanctions. They serve no purpose. They are not affecting the people that are supposed to be affected. The people that are supposed to be affected by these sanctions are laughing all the way to the bank. It is ordinary people, villagers, little kids, old women who are sick, people who suffer from HIV, all these people, all these issues that you're always talking about in Zimbabwe, unemployed people. If you don't work right now, it's because of the sanctions. This is what this report says. You can go to gambabo.com and read this report. This is the most hard-hitting report I've ever seen. And this is the second report which says the same. So let's look at the previous report. And this report was in 2019. The UN Special Rapporteur on the right to food came to Zimbabwe and identified sanctions as the key obstacle to the enjoyment of the right to food in Zimbabwe. So basically what they're saying here is hunger in Zimbabwe is being caused by the sanctions. That is what the old report said. And this report now says human rights are being affected by these sanctions. So I'm sure this is clear. This report, totally clear. It says everything that needs to be said. I don't know how this is going to be resolved because I see that there's no meeting of the minds between the United States and Zimbabweans. These two have taken a hardline position. In fact, the United States has taken a hardline position. They want certain changes. So let me go into the changes that the United States want. And these are very, very difficult to fulfill for the Zimbabwe government. I want us to look at structural, economic, political, media reforms. These are massive changes that the Zimbabwe government needs to make. And I think the report by the United Nations Special Rapporteur is clear. The Zimbabwe government lacks capacity. I think this is clear. They lack capacity to do some of these things by themselves. It's almost like you want someone to help you to make these changes. You can't just expect the Zimbabwe government to wake up and then start making these changes. Take, for example, the ability to make laws. The amendments in Zimbabwe are taking so long. The alignment of laws is taking so long. You know, currently there's this issue on the table of devolution. It's taking long. The laws are not there. And I saw in the newspaper that councillors were elected in 2018 have not started working. So there's a lack of capacity. There's also right. Sorry, I lost my network there, and I don't know if it's my load shedding time, but it could be. So let's quickly wrap this up. There's need to obviously meet the United States government and the Zimbabwean government. They need to meet. This cannot be resolved without that meeting taking place. That dialogue between the United States and Zimbabwe, this is a key critical recommendation here. And I hope that this happens. So let me wrap this up. Let me quickly look at the comments here and see if there's anything of interest. Proactive Zimbabwe, hi Gambakwe, hi Proactive Zimbabwe. But we now need fresh blood Zimbabwe, Gambakwe. I think, Milton, I need to answer you. The sanctions, let's say we put your favorite politician in office. The removal process of the sanctions will take years. And most people don't need it. You need to start doing it now. If you hope to become the future government of our country, you need to do it now. And then Jangunda George says, people need to understand that sanctions destroy our country more than ZANU. I do agree. Although Mugabe was making things terrible, like the guy did nothing during the time when I was in office. You can imagine the lack of development, the lack of policy direction, the general mismanagement of the economy under the Mugabe era was terrible. And this is one of the reasons why we have sanctions in Zimbabwe. The land reform was chaotic. People got killed during the land reform. People got dispossessed of their land, and then they left no one on the land. Imagine that. This is one thing that drove these Western countries crazy. You cannot do what they did during that Mugabe time. That was terrible. And those are the things I say we need to address. Remember, when you're talking of removal of sanctions, you're talking about a big thing. Look at Cuba. How long have they been under sanctions? This is something that you need to take seriously. It's not something that you just say remove sanctions. It's a process. It has to go through probably a process in the US government, in the US Congress. These are not things that just happen one day and they'll be debated and so forth. So when you say let's remove sanctions, you have to think very, very deeply about how to do it. That's where the dialogue needs to come in. Now let's go to Milton. Milton is saying US is a toothless bulldog. I don't think so. When the UN tells you that you're violating human rights, you are making little kids sick, and you are making the life of old women. They say 70% of women prostitutes in South Africa. It's in this report. Young Zimbabweans were in prostitution in South Africa. It's because of the sanctions. That's your sister. That's your mother. That's your relative who is a prostitute because of sanctions. These are not jokes. These are serious issues. And then I want to obviously end with the fact that what happens next? What happens next? What happens when the UN Special Rapporteur produces this report? Can the United States just ignore it? Who is supposed to take this report? To whom? What is the purpose of these reports? And I think that's a question that we're going to be having with us for a very, very long time. Right, so I think we're done here. I'm going to bring this to an end, and then I'll be back during the week. Obviously, I want to look at the Zambia situation. Zambia is very, very interesting. They've done a great job there. President Hakainde Hichilema. I want to look at that, what he's doing over there over the past year. It's exactly a year since President Hakainde Hichilema was inaugurated as president in Zambia. I've been there, and I'm going to be there again very, very soon. I might even be there right now, So let's see what he has done over there, why Zambia is becoming such an interesting country, even more interesting than South Africa. And let's look at that probably Monday or Tuesday. And then, obviously, I wanted to look at the situation with Simbachi Kanza and Hopo Chingono accusing each other of being agents. And I think we'll do that probably another time. I'm getting very, very busy, and I'll start broadcasting during the day to just deal with these issues so that I have more time. So remember, I used to broadcast in the morning. So now maybe we'll add more broadcasts during the day. There's a lot to cover. And as we go into the elections, we might need to go even more because there's a lot to cover. There's a big gap in the Zimbabwe media. I hope that we could create capacity with funding so that we can get young people to broadcast. We have such a big problem right now as we speak. Imagine today, from morning till this time, there's not been a proper broadcast by any of the big media houses. Simba has not broadcast anything. I've been looking there. Chingono has not broadcast anything. The guys at Nehanda, I have not seen any analysis coming out. So we need more media, especially going into the elections. We need more debate. And obviously, there's a lot of jokes that go around. Like, don't take seriously everything that you see us doing. And some of it, we don't want to take ourselves too seriously. You can go to gambako.com. You'll see that we've posted a guy there who says Gavakwe is a member of ZANU-PF. You see, I don't take those things seriously. They don't bug me. They don't bother me. I'm really interested in engaging with everybody here, and so that we can continue with the discourse. There is a lot to be said. There's a lot to be done in our country. It's clear that our country needs rebuilding. Everybody needs to play their part. Because what I've realized is the guys in politics, they are over there. The guys in the opposition, the guys in government, they are not connected to the people. You need something among the people to connect the people. And this issue that Elena Dohan raised of the internet, it's critical. When you're in Zimbabwe, it's almost as if there's no internet. I don't know whether it is the network providers or what, but there is no connection. You need this good connection to come up. We need to address this. If the United States government can do one thing for Zimbabwe, is to make sure that people have got access to the internet. This will solve half of the problems. We've got such a big problem where internet is a luxury. It's not supposed to be a luxury. It's like water. If someone doesn't have water, that is how it feels if you don't have internet. You are disadvantaged. And this has been the biggest impact of the sanctions on Zimbabwe. We can't move to the next industrial development, industrial revolution with this kind of problem. And the United States guys, they really need to look at this and address these sanctions. You are punishing the ordinary people. That is me speaking to them now. Ordinary people, and not the people that are supposed to be hit by these sanctions. Elena Dohan, good job here. And let's talk about other issues during the week. Thank you very much, and good night. Kuno, aho.
ay, uyo, uko, kuno, aho, pano. Mama wanna get it, mama wanna get it nice. I know food I miss so, I know food I tebe, I know kaya mari. Kama kwe doti kom, wengele doti kom upusa saire. Kama
kwe uyo anotara mari anogaya mari garai mamunzwa pane nyaya pano zvamunoda kunzwa zvinotaurwa pano madiko kumunzwa mugovane.com. Kamba kwe vanogaya mari vanotaura mari vanosiya mari. Kamba kwe vanotaura feya kuti pamberi zvichafamba sei. Vanhu muteerere zvikubatsirei mukufamba kwenyu zvikubatsirei. Mirai ndikudzei kuti chokwadi pano chizere. Kamba kwe vanogaya cash vanopa mafacts vanotaura straight vane evidence vane confidence plus intelligence.
Entertainment, current affairs and news. Kamba kwe don't come. Usasarire, kamba kwe anukaya mari. Mari. Kamba kwe.